the man you see behind Mr. Tyree is Hank Willaims, and Mr. Tyree
handled the services for Hank Williams' mother, for Hank's mother in January of 1st, 1953.
And so what was that? What time of day was it when you looked at you got a call?
About I'd say 8:30, 9 o'clock on New Year's Day.
And were you surprised when you got the call?
No, because we had a lot of Williamses living in this area, and I just thought, well, it might be one of them. So I mean, it didn't mean anything to me as far as who he might have been at that particular minute. But then afterwards, I found out what he was, or who he was.
And how did you find out that it was, the Hank Willaims, or did that mean it? Did you even know about him at that time?
Well, I'd heard some songs, but I mean that's just you go in a restaurant or someplace they'd have a jukebox, might have a song on there, and they would have a recording of it. But I mean, as far as being a fan of that type music and all, I just wasn't into any type of music much at that time.
You just listen, like most of us probably, you just listened to whatever was on the radio.
Well, that's right.
And he was probably pretty big in Oak Hill.
Pardon?
He was probably pretty big in Oak Hill.
I don't remember how many about that.
So it really didn't.
I mean, we took care of it for his mother and all like that, and it was just something, out of the unusual for the fact that he was a Grand Ole Opera person, and he was pronounced dead here at Oak Hill.
Yeah, that kind of struck you as.
Now, had we like we have now, like we have the medical examiners in Charleston, they would have sent him to Charleston, and we wouldn't have been involved. But it's the fact that we didn't have a medical examiner system at that time. Why, we was involved with it.
So how long was he at your funeral home?
Well, we had him at the funeral home from maybe on the first day of January, and his mother came in the next morning and made the arrangements for us to take him back and all like that. And we left at 4 o'clock that evening on the 2nd of January.
Okay.
So that would have been about 24 hours or something like that, 30, something like that. 2 days, I guess you might say.
And his body just seemed normal to you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was, there wasn't anything out of the unusual with it. He just, as if he'd had a heart attack and died.
Was he stiff?
Pardon?
Was he stiff?
Not any more than anybody else at that time.
I mean, for that length of time. No. What would you estimate his time of death, or did you even try?
I didn't try.
Because no one knows when he really...
No, although I did talk with Charles Carr, his chauffeur, a few years ago, whenever the legislature was talking about that they want to name a highway after him, and there was some question about it and all of that. And I called Charles Carr in Montgomery and asked him when was the last time that he actually saw him, and he told me when he got in the car at Bluefield, West Virginia.
Got it.
And he was in the back seat, and he covered him up, and that's the last time that he talked to him.
So Bluefield was probably about an hour and a half from Oak Hill?
It probably was at that time because the turnpike wasn't
Right.
built. So you had to come over through Princeton and Flat Top, Gent, and all out through there, and Beckley, and Mount Hope, and all that and hit sort of a bad night at that.
Right.
Not knowing where you was going, while you could make a whole lot of time.
Right. Did he say, did Mr. Carr, did he say that he got lost anywhere along?
No, he didn't say that.
Because I've heard lately a talk that they got lost. They went all the way to Montgomery, West Virginia.
No.
Down 61.
Yeah.
No, you don't?
No, he stopped when he came into the red. He stopped he's supposed to have stopped at Hilltop, and a restaurant was open, and he went in to relieve himself, and when he came back out, he noticed that the blanket or the cover had sort of fell off of Hank, and he reached back, and when he touched him, he found he was cold. So then he went back and asked somebody where was the closest hospital, and they told him about 2 miles down the road.
Now, this was what restaurant did he stop at?
Well, they always say it was out there, on this side of I think they still got the name on it out there, next to Hilltop, next to Three Gables. You know that place on this side of the Three Gables? That's the place they stopped.
Is it Skyline Drive? Is that what they call it?
I think that's what they did.
Yeah, that's what I've always heard. They stopped there
and then so when he got into Oak Hill, he stopped there at the girls' station, asked them where the hospital's at, and they told him to remember having a corner. And that's where that was for a while. So
he stopped at. Now that was en route, the Skyline Drive.
No, that was coming into Oak Hill.
Yeah. So he stopped there and then just headed on into town, and there wasn't no, heading.
He was in town when he stopped there.
Yeah, well, that was kind of a rumor that I've heard. There's so many.
Well, there's a lot of
conjecture.
And there's been a lot of people wrote books that wasn't really true stories either about it. They wrote a book and all, and probably sold them too.